Seeing no one, may I have a motion to close?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May I have a motion to adopt Ordinance 1823?
Can we open this for discussion?
Sure. Well, we can take the motion first, and then we'll open it for discussion.
Okay.
So may I have a motion to adopt Ordinance 1823?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Why is the ordinance different than the code? We didn't change the ordinance. So why? I'm just asking, why would there be a difference?
I can't hear you.
She said, why is the ordinance different from the code?
What code?
So is this added to the ordinance itself? You're saying here, A. You're saying A?
This is changed to that. This is added.
Yeah, but this is this the actual ordinance? Is there two different things, an ordinance and a code? When I go to the code, I can press a button that brings me to the exact ordinance. So this does not match the exact ordinance because we never changed the ordinance.
If you look at the bottom, it says additions are underlined. So the new language in the ordinance would not be in the code because it's being added via the ordinance.
Right, say that again?
There's a footer at the bottom of the page
Right,
that
I
says
see it.
additions are underlined.
Correct.
So the language that's underlined is not going to be in the code because it hasn't been enacted yet by the council. That's what you're doing tonight.
It's codified.
The
We're not
ordinance itself has
changing.
not been codified at this time.
Okay.
Submitted to the codifier, but they don't codify every ordinance every day. They do it once a year. So when they send the codification, you'll see the ordinance in its entirety, but as
Will reflect this change?
it'll reflect this correction.
Okay.
It would be under the ordinances if you look on the website. The ordinance of 2018 are listed separately.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. So that's going to change then?
Yes, the code will
Okay.
change.
Okay. Thank you.
Roll call?
Councilmember Ooms?
Yes.
Councilmember Kadesh?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Tass?
Yes.
Councilmember Allberger?
Yes.
Council President Murphy?
Yes.
Okay, before we go on, I want to discuss something, and this is in reference to the soil fill and the work session. Last meeting, Ms. Murphy told me that we did not vote on a work session when I brought it up. So I had to go back as well, and Ms. Palladini is correct. That is not stated in the minutes, and I'd like to make a motion to amend those minutes to reflect our vote, that we actually did vote for a work
Well,
session.
we will ask the clerk.
So I'd like
if-
to make that motion and get a second to amend it to
What we'll
reflect
do
that.
is we'll ask the clerk if she could check the tape and then work it
I'd
that way.
like to make a motion and get a second. No, because nothing ever happens when I ask for something, just like the work session. Will somebody please give me a second to amend that?
And like I said, the clerk can
It will
go.
never happen then. It's not going to happen then.
Because you did make a motion in a previous meeting that was seconded and reflected in the minutes. Your subsequent motion, which was a second meeting, was not seconded. And then I actually made a comment at another meeting that the motion died for lack of a second. So I would appreciate the opportunity to listen to the tape and make sure that it is correct.
All right, will you put that back on the agenda then for this
Yes, that will be
consideration
in-
for the next
She'll
one?
review the minutes.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
You've already adopted.
And I would also like in this minutes to reflect that I'm mentioning that a work session was voted on and was
No, I think
neglected
you're
to put in there.
confusing
Pardon me?
You're confusing that with another time.
No, I'm not. I'm saying I would like
I
it
did
to
not
reflect.
second your motion.
Yes, it was unanimous. That first vote for the
Mr.
work
Kadish
session.
is saying he did not second. Okay, so anyhow,
That was
and
the
I
second
offered,
one. But the first one, it went through. Listen to the tape and you'll
Yeah.
see it all there.
so you can listen to it. However, the soil, just for the public's knowledge, because there's a lot of people that are here, there's a lot of members of the public that are here, that ordinance was originally passed in April. We put the ordinance in, this was to try to, this had to do with all the soil being delivered to town. So the ordinance was passed. And what we did do subsequently is we changed a little bit of the language that was on the agenda today. Something that maybe you've missed is that in prior meetings, I think it was the last meeting or the meeting before, we had local contractors that did come because they're actually being faced with local deliveries where they're doing septics or pools or, various things, and they came to speak on their own behalf of what they're going through. They're being stopped and they're being questioned as to what they're doing with soil in their trucks. Regardless of whether or not they're going up 515, they're actually working, doing their day-to-day business. So we also have to be very cognizant of what's going on with the local contractors. We'll move on to Ordinance 1824. Ordinance amending and supplementing the salary ordinance for non-union employees establishes a stipend for the assistant to the CFO. May I have a motion to open public hearing for Ordinance 1824?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anyone from the public that would like to step up to address Ordinance 1824? Seeing no one, may I have a motion to close to public?
Motion.
Okay, I have a first and a second. May I have a motion to adopt Ordinance 1824?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call.
Councilmember Holmes?
Yes.
Councilmember Koenig?
Yes.
Councilmember Van Tassel?
Yes.
Councilmember Allberger?
Yes.
Council President Murphy?
Yes. Next, we move on to Ordinance 1826, an ordinance of the Township of Vernon, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey, authorizing a referendum to allow additional expenditures from the Open Space Trust Fund for Public Pathway Development and Maintenance. This creates a binding referendum to expand the use for the open space funds. May I have a motion to open to public hearing for Ordinance 1826?
Motion.
We have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anyone from the public that would like to step up and address Ordinance 1826? Yes.
I need to get the workout tonight. Once again, in going back to the theme of inaccurate or falsified minutes.
Excuse me. Could you
last
please
meeting-
not accuse our clerk of
I could
falsifying
say whatever
minutes?
I want
No, I'm
during my
asking you-
public comment
I'm
period.
asking you not to be
I could say
accused.
whatever I want.
Not accusing employees.
I can say whatever I want,
Continue.
and I believe that the minutes are being either falsified or they are inaccurate. Okay? At the meeting, you all sat there and you discussed the open space. In fact, I have that in writing too. And it was agreed upon unanimously that it would be 30% total of the $900-some-odd-thousand that we have in that open space fund. And you even said, Ms. Murphy, would you like to put horse tracks in here, Mr. Kadish? And you had the whole discussion. The attorney confirmed, she did say that. The attorney confirmed, so there is a cap. One time, 30% total. The clerk even reiterated it. You all...
I take exception to that comment. I asked, and I said that I didn't understand, and the attorney said that he had it and he was...
Okay, but I didn't ask
Okay,
for your
excuse me.
explanation.
Excuse
It's
me.
my time to
You don't
speak.
get to make false statements and then accuse me of things. And
I didn't make a false statement.
Yes, you did.
And yet the published ordinance did not reflect that language that you all discussed up here. The ordinance did not reflect that language and that vote that you discussed up here. So my question to you again is, again, I am not against open space. I am not against trails if we can afford it and if it's what we want to do. But I want to put it on the record right here, right now. Whatever you adopt tonight, whether it's a resolution or an ordinance, I want to clarify, is it 30% of the total fund one time, not every year? Is that what the ordinance or the resolution is going to say?
May I answer?
Yes, please.
Dan,
Yes or no?
excuse me, Dan.
No,
Could
I'd
you
like to hear
please
what Dan
discuss it
says.
during your comments at the discussion?
He's allowed to answer if he
Do
wants.
not tell me how to run the
You
meeting.
can't tell him what to do.
Do not tell me how to run the meeting.
He's an elected councilman.
Yeah.
You can't tell him what to
Councilmember
do.
Kadish,
The current
Please.
ordinance that we're dealing with right now, not all the other mistakes that were made,
Thank you.
approximately $972,000 and $12.92 as of July 17, 2018, to allow no more than the 30% of the Township Open Space Trust Fund to be used for maintenance of the town-owned open space.
But is that every year, Dan?
No more
Okay.
than. That's all.
Okay. So that's it.
That
It's just
takes
the
care of the
30%.
one-time situation.
Thank you for the integrity of answering that question.
Is there anyone else that has any comments? Please step up. Seeing no one, may I have a motion to close?
Comment, Sally Brinker Vernon. So I would just like to reiterate what I said earlier, and I agree with Ms. Palladini's assessment that the ordinance needs to be clear if we truly, honestly want people to make a good decision on the use of this money, what it's used for, how much is going to be used. This ordinance is not depicting that. I'm going to read a little excerpt from the Herald, and I don't usually like to quote reporters, but Eric Obenauer got it right when he said the council, after much discussion, amended that provision to cap, and Lauren used the word cap, Ms. Kirkman used the word cap, but that didn't appear in the amendment, to cap the amount to a one-time set aside based on 30% of whatever money is in the open space fund at the time the proposal becomes law, should that happen. That's what needs to be in the ordinance, on the ballot, for the people to read so they can precisely know what's expected from the result of their vote. And besides that, it's what we all should deserve to know, what's going to happen with this money. Because you can sit there and say, well, we meant this, we meant that. But you didn't say that in the amendment. And I'm asking you to put this language back correctly as you voted 2-3 weeks ago. You voted on all this verbiage, yet none of it appears in the ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that has any comments? Seeing no one, may I have a motion to close to public?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a motion to adopt ordinance 18? Oh, sorry, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to adopt ordinance 1820?
Motion.
6.
Second.
I have a first and a second. Roll call?
Wait a second. Let's open, why are we not opening this for discussion?
No, I thought you were discussing it already.
Isn't there a hearing?
I'd like to open this for discussion.
Go ahead. Please step out in the hall if you have any comments.
Two things. I agree. This is not clear enough. It needs to be stated as a one-time only with an exact amount of what this fund is. So if we're putting $300,000 to the side, then it needs to be stated in there, a one-time only. This is very ambiguous. And then, as we were saying, let the people decide. The only thing people are deciding with this vote is to give the money over to the council and let the council decide what to do with it. This says no decision in here. These are just examples of what you may do with it at the time. But really, in a sense, you're giving the money over to the council to decide. In the end, that's what you're doing. You're not bound to all these little things like gardens and trailheads and stuff. You're not bound to it in this. If you were bound to it, you would say you would be using it for these items, not such as. So I
Change
think,
the wording to say that's
Well, no, you-
what it's to be used for.
pardon me?
No.
It's saying such as.
Say for it's anything, so it doesn't
So
really matter.
to me,
does it?
it's not specific. That's what you're using it for. So you're giving it to the council to decide on a base-by-base basis, case-by-case basis. Eligible projects will be determined by the township council on a case-by-case basis. So all this in here does not mean that it's going to happen. We hope it happens, but in my opinion, you're giving the money over to the council to decide what to do with it. I'm just saying. But anyway, I believe the question is not clear, and it needs to say a one-time
I believe
That
the
is-
question is clear, and actually, we have public that's come out tonight, and it's great for the public to come out, and if they have an issue with something that the town will end up using it for, they can certainly come out and voice their opinion.
But I'm talking about the 30%
I know what
one
you're talking
time.
about.
Then no
And it
one
says it.
addressed, everybody's
Councilmember
fine with
Page-
it.
Agreed at that meeting that
Councilmember
was
Page,
one
you
time
just
only,
read
so
it.
why is,
Councilmember Page.
I'm speaking.
Please step out
well,
into
any
the hall.
council from now on can change something.
It
Please
says
do not.
30%.
I think it's clear.
I know,
First of all,
I got suckered
know-
into it.
Excuse me,
Wait,
is there any other
talk.
question?
Can I please
Yes,
finish
then
what I'm
please-
saying?
Please do.
Well, you keep on talking down there.
Because you keep asking questions, and we're
I'm
all
not.
allowed
I'm
to
waiting for you
speak.
to finish
We're
talking.
all allowed to speak. This is not just your time. So please proceed.
First of all, we got this packet here with all the old information in. I didn't know of all these changes until we sat down here. So first of all, that was really bad.
Well, excuse me, but if you don't know about the changes, then you're not reading your packet till you sit down at the dais?
Dean,
It's emailed
no,
to you.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
When I picked up this packet on Friday night, and then, by the way, it should be done earlier. Excuse me, Jean, I picked this packet up, and should I read to you what's in here?
I know
it's
exactly
the old
what was in-
version.
I know exactly what was in there.
Well,
and the old
I-
version.
That
And-
I did advise the council prior to the meeting that we inadvertently
Prior
copied
to-
the old.
right, prior to the
However,
meeting.
The correct version of this ordinance was emailed to every member of the council on July 24th.
June,
If you had
yeah.
any issue with the way the ordinance was drafted, on July 24th, when Mr. Zelinski drafted it after your council meeting and sent it to you, that would have been the opportunity to say, I believe there is an error.
Well, what about the resolution? Was in there too with the same old verbiage in the resolution?
No, the rules of
Just newly drafted, that wasn't old verbiage.
that wasn't old. That was a word was left in it, and it was corrected. And it was
Not in
corrected
mine.
immediately this morning before you made your inquiry.
Not mine.
It was
Mine
corrected.
has the old version on
And
it.
when you made your call this morning,
But
it was
anyway, I'm
already
saying
corrected.
This was
And
a mess.
as far as the
This was
agenda
a
goes,
mess.
when Ms. Kirkman's
But anyway,
computers
the
were
30
down for 2 or 3 days.
Pardon me?
I said the computers down there were down for 2 or 3 days.
I didn't know that.
So you don't call, you don't ask, you show up here and you make demands. Oh, yeah.
Right, I should
Please,
be behind
Ms.
closed doors.
Palladini, please do not shout out from the audience.
It's a violation of the
Please do
Open
not.
Public Act to discuss this.
Hey, let's be quiet in the audience, please.
But anyway, that's a
you.
violation, and because I call other people, I just don't call you, Ms. Murphy.
That's fine.
But at any rate, I still believe that it should be clear there, 30% one time only. That's what we discussed. This is ambiguous and can be interpreted in many ways.
Is there any other discussion? Roll call.
Councilmember Owens,
I'm fine with the 30%, but this needs to be clarified, so no.
Councilmember Kadesh,
Yes.
Councilmember Van Tassel.
Yes.
Councilmember Alberger.
Yes.
Council President Murphy.
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt ordinance 1826.
Where's my other ordinance? Never mind.
Could be.
Next, we have ordinance 1820, an ordinance replacing Chapter 447 of the Code of the Township of Vernon entitled Property Maintenance. This establishes requirements for property maintenance within the township. May I have a motion to open the public hearing for ordinance 1820?
Motion.
May I have a second? I have a first and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to step up and address? Yes.
I've listened to every Craig Williams story in Glenwood, and I don't have a sidewalk. But I've been listening to all the public comment regarding this very thing, and the idea that either the lake community or individual property owners gave the township property in order to develop sidewalks, and it's township property we're talking about. How is it logical that somehow the requirement for maintenance of township property should fall to individual homeowners? It just defies any kind of logic that I would ascribe to.
Could you just, Could you just answer that? Just that that's not necessarily the case. Just, I don't want to leave the record.
Oh, sure. Just to be clear and to answer that question, there's a state statute, NJSA 40:65-12, that's referenced in the ordinance that allows the state legislature to determine that municipalities can ask through ordinances for homeowners to be responsible tenants or occupants to sweep sidewalks and to clear them of snow. So that's why that's in there. That's why the precatory language is in there referencing the state statute. It's allowed by state statute.
But we're still not clear on ownership anyway, are we?
Oh, the only other thing is to reiterate my earlier points in discussions with Council for Highland Lakes. We still need to have clarity regarding who owns what land within this land conveyed to the township, where it's located with respect to the sidewalks and the property owners and the lake community's land.
Yes.
Evening, folks. Jack McLaughlin from Highland Lakes. A question for the township attorney. If the ordinance as approved on first reading and is perhaps going to be introduced tonight, to what degree can that be substantively amended and the council can proceed with
It cannot be substantively amended tonight and proceed. If there's a substantive amendment to the ordinance, it gets republished and the second reading occurs at the next meeting.
Right. So the ordinance cannot be substantively amended tonight.
No, it can't. It can't be. It can't be substantively amended and then adopted.
No, agreed. Right. So I'm going to request that the council substantively amend the ordinance by deleting from 447-10, paragraph A, in its entirety, the section related to sidewalks. And at some point in time, the council may return to the issue of sidewalks in town center, as the council did in 2007. So that is my request.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to step forward? Seeing no one else.
I would like to also, yeah. My name is Keith McCotter. I'm up in Highland Lakes section. I do not live on Breakneck Road. I'm a member of a board. I go to a lot of school board member meetings and not many council meetings. The last time I was here with my robotics team, and we were showing off a robot, and that's basically why I came here. But I guess I want to disagree with the township's attorney's recommendation earlier that you pass an ordinance and then revisit the small portion that you have an issue with. That's not been my experience of good governance. If you have an issue with something, a pretty large issue by a lot of people that were here, rather than passing it and going back later, I think what Mr. McLaughlin just suggested makes a lot of sense, especially the public that is going to be impacted by this greatly. A large majority of those people, or a large portion of those people, are not even going to be in town if you'd revisit this between now and the winter time. So, just wanted to
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Yes, thank you. I believe this matter of Highland Lakes and the sidewalks.
And just state your name, please.
Robert Hughes, Highland Lakes, arose in 1985. And in 1996, 11 years later, council, maybe even one of you, I'm not quite sure, certainly not more than one of you, passed on a first reading, essentially the same type of ordinance, and then cooler heads provided, and it was tabled. 11 years later, it arose again, 2007, passed on first reading, cooler heads prevailed, it was tabled. 11 years have gone by. Here we are again. I propose that a motion be made to table it, and then we'll put something in the tickler file for 2029 when this happens again. It's one of my favorite movies is Brigadoon. Every 100 years, Brigadoon pops back out of the Highlands in Scotland, and they live another day. Well, Brigadoon's alive in Vernon, and we've moved it up to 11 years. So I ask that this be tabled tonight, and you think about it. You've heard so many valid reasons why this may be a great idea in some areas in Vernon, for some properties in Vernon, namely the town center, and it's a terrible idea for Highland Lakes and a road that tilts like this, where people would have to grab a shovel full of snow and throw it over a high school gym backboard to get it off the road. What are you thinking of? Please table it and think about it some more. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that have any comments?
You saved me the trouble of going home and looking in the minutes in 96.
Will you still be here in 2029?
I hope not.
Is there anyone else? Seeing no one else, may I have a motion
Motion.
to close? I have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? In taking into consideration some of the items that were brought up this evening, what I've asked the attorney here to propose is possibly what we would do is, if the council's in agreement, is amending the ordinance with, at this point, removing Highland Lakes, leaving the sidewalk ordinance in to address the sidewalks at the town center, but removing Highland Lakes, but that there be discussion that would ensue after this to come up with an agreement so this doesn't happen again. Because I think that's one of the problems, is it keeps arising because there's a lot of documentation that we were just provided, like I said, as late as I think it was Sunday, from your attorney. So depending on if the council's in agreement, what we could do is, I would like to make a motion to amend it to just remove Highland Lakes at this time from the ordinance.
Second.
I'd like to make a motion to table this, because there's other things in here I believe that need to be addressed too. And I would like to see this table, because nowhere in here does it say specifically Highland Lakes. Where are you speaking that it says Highland Lakes in here?
No, I'm saying exclude Highland Lakes. It doesn't say.
But you're going to have to rewrite it and introduce it again.
No.
I think I just wanted to clarify. You're saying you want to exclude Highland Lakes from section 447-10, or exclude Highland Lakes from the entire ordinance?
Just from the remove from the sidewalks, from that section. Now, what we would be doing is we would be amending it, and it would be coming back again for public hearing.
You're going to take out this whole section?
No, 44710 will be amended to exempt Highland Lakes from the requirements of 44710.
4710A.
A.
I thought.
Hey.
Yes.
Motion and a second.
And that was to remove and.
So you want to remove this? Wait, I still want to speak about this.
That's fine.
'cause I
No,
have some
I'm-
changes I'd like to see.
So we have a motion and a
And I know.
second to amend ordinance 1820, section 447-10, section A, to exempt Highland Lakes from that section alone.
So what are you going to add to this, except the people in Highland Lakes? I mean, how are you going to amend this? Because I'd like to know how it's going to be written. How are you going to amend it? How are you going to write it?
It's going to be written to amend the residents and occupants of the Highland Lakes community from the requirements in the second sentence of 44710A.
Should we list the streets
No, I
to
can't-
make it easier also?
That's why I'm saying, let's table this and come back with a
No, we
whole
don't-
new one. That's what I'd like to
We
see,
can just proceed this way.
that have the changes in here.
Yep.
Instead
That's-
of amending
what were
this on the
what were
fly.
other- What were, excuse,
Council President, excuse me. Scott Geisels is the president of Barry Lakes.
Yes.
Which is located in Highland Lakes. And I live in Highland Lakes. So the question really becomes, the zip code.
it's not by zip code.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you want to say the sidewalk along Breakneck Road is exempt, that gets the definition that's needed.
Well, no, but what I'm saying is, if we're removing Highland Lakes, I mean, his mailing address is Highland Lakes, but he does not live in Highland Lakes. He lives in Barry Lakes.
Well,
I understand.
You've got to answer that
Well,
question.
no, I'm giving you, I know that your mailing address is Highland Lakes. That's just like, whether or not somebody lives over, near the lamppost, their mailing address is Sussex, but they live in Vernon. So understanding that it's not by zip code.
Right, but Highland Lakes means different things to different people.
Well, Lake Wanda, where
It is not Highland Lakes.
Council President,
Yeah, excuse me.
instead of excluding this area and excluding that area, can we just make it so it's only the town center?
Okay, and do the reverse of that, have the sidewalks only reflect the town center?
Correct. If you're going to do the second version of only the sidewalks in the town center, then I would suggest that the administration identify the specific streets and sidewalks in the town center that they want the obligation to apply to.
We have a similar phrase in section B that says this section that's in this part shall not apply to
The town center zone.
the town center zone, so perhaps we can mirror that language.
Correct. You could mirror that language because it's defined in the definitions as the town center zone in the township zoning map. So it's council's pleasure.
Would
So
that
what,
be?
say it? I want to hear what it's going to be written. How are you going to
I can't give you a verbatim quote right now of how it's going to be written.
That's why I say it
Could-
should be
please,
tabled and come back.
We
with
don't
a
need
whole new one.
your opinion.
I want to see what it looks like before. I don't
The
like
audience,
us
always.
doing this stuff on the fly, not thinking about it. They're asking it for it to be tabled. Why can't we table it? Why does it have to go through today on the second reading?
Because obviously there are so many complaints about things being tabled. But in the meantime, most of the council's ready to proceed, so we will just amend it. So we will then include that it'll only be the town center properties. What Josh Zielinski is recommending is that the town center streets be physically named within them. If you'd like us to sit here and name them, we can name them for you.
So now you're going to have to reintroduce it because that's a very big.
It's a
They're
substantive
not-
change. The ordinance will be revised. It will be provided to you before the next meeting, at which time there'll be a second hearing on the ordinance as amended.
Okay, well, talking about amending, I would like to make some comments as well.
What other comments do you have?
Well, again, I brought this up at the last meeting. We keep on saying this is what people want. People want this property maintenance. I mean, that's what you've said up here several times, Ms. Murphy, that people want this. But I think people want a property maintenance that we can enforce. And here, the verbiage in here still, the enforcement officer may exercise appropriate discretion resulting in an initial verbal warning or notice that may be in writing. Not a violation, but a notice in writing. So how, again, can you give some people a verbal warning and some people are going to now get a violation? It should then read, everybody's going to get a verbal warning. How can, there's no equity
Well,
in this. Some people are going to get a violation and
I
some
think-
people are
I
not.
believe you asked this question of the
I
mayor,
did.
and he answered it already.
No, yes,
And
and I
it's-
don't agree with
it's-
it.
oh,
I
that's-
looked at least 30 property maintenances from all over the United States. Not one is discretionary. They all said in this line here, because everybody copies everybody's ordinances throughout the United States, that the officer shall give appropriate violation.
And ours says may. Now, for instance, if there is someone that
And
is...
again,
Again,
some people
so
are going
now
to get a
I'm
violation and
speaking,
some aren't.
and again-
Can I please finish talking?
You never stop. But what happens is... what happens is...
She is so nasty to me
Yeah,
and says a
thank
lot
you.
of lies about me.
Okay, thank
So
you.
now I also want to say,
So could we address that first issue?
Excuse me, I'm
Can we
still
address-
talking about
can the
what I
council
want
address that
changed.
first issue?
oh, come on.
Let the council address that first issue. You asked a question. You said, why does it say may instead of shall?
I didn't say that. I said I looked at all property maintenances and no one is may, it's all shall, because they're all the same. But now I'm going to emergency conditions. Whenever the enforcement officer finds that an emergency condition is in violation of this chapter, exists, which condition requires immediate attention in order to protect the public health or safety, he may issue an order. It's an emergency. Our safety is compromised, and they're still deciding if they're going to do something or not. It should be shall. everybody should be treated the same. Why put whoever the zoning officer is in this position to now defend why somebody got a violation and the other person didn't? Just saying. It could be used to target, it could be used in a lot of different manners, and why even put the zoning officer in there now trying to describe to the public why one person got a violation, the other one didn't? Just saying. It should be shall, not may. So, not equal. So again, like I said, the whole thing should be...
So you would like the zoning officer to just show up, and if someone has been in the hospital and has been non-existent for a month, and they say, I've been sick and I'm just back, the zoning officer should just issue them a fine? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't think there's anything in here that requires addressing if somebody's in the hospital. Maybe the weeds might grow, but their house isn't going to peel, and the snow is not,
right.
Snow might be there.
Please say that.
No,
Every
snow's
case
not
is
going to be there.
different.
So, again, I mean, I'm all for working with the residents, but everybody has to be treated equal. You can't give one person a violation and the other one not. Or somebody comes and says, you know, the house next door is bringing down the value of my house. It has no roof. There's varmints in it or whatever. It's unsanitary. And then now nothing gets done. And then the person comes back and says, you know what, I made a complaint. Well, we really didn't have to tell them. It really is not a violation. You know, that's what I'm saying. Again, yeah, I'm done.
May I?
Oh, sure.
You could solve that problem by simply voting this ordinance down. As far as I'm concerned, this ordinance is an intrusion.
Make a motion, Dan. Make a motion. Make a motion. Or I'll make that motion.
I allowed you to
You know,
speak.
it's, yeah.
This motion is,
That's true.
this ordinance is an intrusion on every person's property rights to decide how to mow their lawn, what trees to put in. To me, health and safety are very important. We're already covered in all the other ordinances that we have. But I see no reason for this ordinance, number one. Number two, it has no procedure for appeal, since the mayor decided that he didn't want a part of that political brouhaha. So he took himself out. And I think it's arbitrary. I think the whole notion has to do with property values, and some of us just like to live where we've been for 70 years without having somebody else to tell us how to mow our lawn or what weeds to grow.
It just so happens I've actually pulled out a property maintenance ordinance. This thing, just like what's going on in Highland Lakes, was kicked around in 2010 and tabled. You know, so it comes time, and now just because there were people that didn't show up, and I've given you examples of people that do live next door to people who do not maintain their home, and you know what? They feel it is an intrusion. So
Are you trying to fix a bad idea?
why are you just fighting what people want? I mean, you know, as I explained to you, if you choose not to maintain your home, that's your prerogative.
But it's not enforceable the way it's written here. It's not enforceable. So if you want to, you know.
So did you want to make a motion to change it to shall, so the zoning officer shall?
Yeah.
So you'd like those two sections to reflect shall?
Yes.
Would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion. It
Would
should
anyone
be
like to
shall.
second it? Mr. Earlberger has seconded.
So it needs
Could you
that
please
whole
tell-
verbiage needs to be changed.
So please give the attorney.
Sections you're referring to, please?
And again, I'd like to see how
What
it's
section
done.
are you referring to?
A of 447-13, enforcement procedure.
447A.
Yes, enforcement
This
procedure.
is another one that I'd like to see how it's written before I vote on it.
You will when it's sent to you.
But then when it starts this whole cycle.
And what was the
all
other
over
section?
again. So the code enforcement officer
It says shall.
not
447-13?
exercise appropriate discretion. That whole has to change now. It's going to be shall be giving a violation, written notice of violation. And then when it's an emergency, and it says he, it should be they or he or she.
So what section, you said that it's 44713 enforcement procedures?
And 447-14.
So 447, whenever the code enforcement officer determines that there is or has been a violation of any provision of this chapter, then notice of violation shall be given.
Yes, there you go.
Well,
That's it.
I mean, it's in there.
No, it says may exercise appropriate discretion resulting in an initial verbal warning.
What section are you
It's
reading?
the second sentence.
447-13.
Just that the only discretion she has is whether she gives a verbal warning or a written warning. She doesn't have discretion on giving a warning. It's just what type she has discretion on, the way this is drafted.
It should just be shall give a notice of violation, that's it, and then go on here, written notice of violation shall be served either by
Right, but
hand.
what you're saying is, so you would prefer that the zoning officer, I mean, it says she shall, or I'm saying she, by the way, because it's Allison LaRocca, who happens to be.
You're asking
saying
us
there may,
strike
it's
the second
shall.
sentence.
So you want to strike the second sentence? What,
447-13, strike the second sentence.
because it already says shall.
Yes, right, there you go, okay. Violation of, then the notice of violation shall be given, right, there you go. Take the rest out. That's it.
And then, so that was the 447-13, and what was the other one? You said there was another.
447-14. And it shall,
Which
in an
section?
emergency.
What part of that?
What would you like changed?
What did you want changed in this?
Shall issue an order by service of notice.
Replace may with shall.
And just review what you're going to change for the Section 8 again.
So for section
447-10A.
447-10A, the third sentence, pursuant to NJSA 40:6512, the owner, owners, occupant, or occupants, tenants of premises abutting or bordering upon any streets in the town center zone, those will be in all caps, shall remove all snow and ice.
Okay, so you're making that town center.
Town center zone. The second amendment is 447-13A, striking of the second sentence. The third amendment is 447-14, the third line,
Wait. Oh, okay, go ahead.
the may shall be changed to shall.
Okay.
Correct?
Did you want to make a motion with those changes?
Yes, I make a motion for these changes.
Second.
Thank you.
And this is for the amendment. Roll call?
Councilmember Ooms,
Yes.
Councilmember Kadesh,
No.
Councilmember Van Tassel.
Yes.
Councilmember Allberger,
Yes.
Council President Murphy.
Yes.
Okay, so motion carries to amend ordinance 1820 as noted by Attorney Zorn.
And I still, I just think it would be a good idea if administration did actually meet with representatives from Highland Lakes to address the issue of the sidewalks there, so this does not come up in the future as to establish, excuse me, I was going to say to establish, because at this time, the town does actually go there and clear the stone, as they've been doing for many years on that sidewalk. But it would be good, like I said, so it does not come up again, because
Mr. Zelinski, as this amendment is a substantive change, we'll have it on August 27th. We'll have a hearing on the amendment.
Yes.
And then we'll have the adoption of the ordinance
As amended, correct.
Thank you. So please note, on August 27th will be a hearing on the amendment only, and then adoption of the ordinance as amended if it is the council's prerogative.
August 27th. Okay. Next, we move on to Resolution 18197, a resolution of the Township of Vernon, County of Sussex, County, State of New Jersey, authorizing a referendum to allow additional expenditures from the Open Space Trust Fund for public pathway development and maintenance. This resolution authorizes the county clerk to place the question referred to in 1826 on the ballot.
Before we vote on this, why is there a resolution and an ordinance?
The county requires it.
The county requires both an ordinance and a resolution?
County requires the resolution to put it on the ballot.
Okay.
May I have a motion?
Motion.
We have a first and a second. Is there any other discussion? Roll call?
Councilmember Ooms,
I'm voting no, but it's only because I do not believe that this is clear enough and that it should have a cap and that we should be specifying, because otherwise we're just letting people just give the money to the council to decide. So, two of those reasons I'm voting no.
Councilmember Kadesh,
No.
Councilmember Van Tassel.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahlberger,
Yes.
Council President Murphy.
Yes.
Resolution 18197 has passed.
Next, Resolution 18198, a resolution of the Township of Vernon, County of Sussex, State of New Jersey, authorizing removal of non-binding public question and interpretive statement from the November ballot. This resolution authorizes the removal of the previously authorized resolution. Is there any? May I have a motion to adopt Resolution 18198?
Motion.
I'll second it. Roll call. Is there any discussion on this? No, roll call.
Councilmember Ooms,
Yes.
Councilmember Kadesh, Councilmember Kadesh,
Yes.
Councilmember Van Tassel.
Yes.
Councilmember Wahlberger,
Yes.
Council President Murphy.
Yes.
Motion carries to adopt Resolution 18-198.
Next, we'll move on to public session. This public session will be for 3 minutes. It's for anything that you may discuss. May I have a motion to open the public? May I have a second? I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Is there anyone from the public that would like to step forward? Yes.
Maureen Edwards, Highland Lakes. So I sat here and I'm a little confused about the property maintenance that you voted to amend it. So are you saying that first, the individuals in question who own the property, residing the property, whatever their relationship to the property is, will get a warning first, and then a fine? They shall get the fine initially. Is that what you're saying?
Right, because I believe the way it was written, some people will get violations for the same thing, and somebody else doing the same thing won't. It's either everybody gets a verbal, or everybody gets a
That's what I'm saying. Well,
warning.
so you might want to consider, everybody gets a warning first, and then you could, like Ms. Murphy said, you find out what the position and what happened with the people. At least they get a chance to say, okay, let me try to correct this and see if I could hire somebody if they can't physically do it, or whatever the circumstances might be for that homeowner or the occupant to get the situation corrected. That would be my only suggestion. Warning first, followed by fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that has any comments? Yes.
It's about Bonnie Rubin and about Resolution 18197. I just want to clarify this for myself. You said the resolution wording has been changed?
Yes.
Was it changed to delete, but up to 30% of the balance present on the first day of each calendar year would be authorized for?
No. It doesn't.
Is that deleted? or-
Yes.
Yes.
It is?
Yep.
Okay, I just want to verify.
Yep.
Okay. Thought that's what you meant.
Yes.
This time. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Seeing no one, may I have a motion to close to public?
Motion.
May I have a
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Council comments. Councilmember Wahlberger.
No mayor's report.
No, it's not on the agenda.
What about mayor's report?
There's
Isn't
no
that on
mayor's
there?
report today.
Oh, no mayor's report?
No. Councilmember Wahlberger?
I think we've talked about 515 with the signage, the speed limits enforcing. I think we need to revisit finally putting something in place for a truck ramp. And I think a piece of property is opened up where, unfortunately, I think the homeowner has since passed away and the property's for sale. It's between Alberta Drive and Breakneck. And I think that we need to go and seek the county's help in putting something there, because we can put signs up, we can do speed limits, we know how that is enforced in town. And we need to have some place. I mean, this trucker made his own emergency ramp going across the lawn, and exactly what the softer soil around the retention pond is where his wheels dug in. They're all over Vermont, New Hampshire, because they have mountains much worse than ours, but close. And I think that's, we can sign it to death. I mean, at the rate it's going, you couldn't even take the county or the town plow trucks up and down those roads in the winter if you had it that way. So we really need to put some sort of safety gap in there for those trucks that don't pay attention. So that's why I think we need to go after the county. There was big talk of it way back when the bus and the tanker, and like Randy, I was there for those too.
Design.
Yeah. No, there just wasn't a very good place, and it was like one of those, are you going to do eminent domain and get the man out of there for that spot? But I think it's really the prime spot. It's before the bend. It's after they pass Breakneck. It's the worst of the hill. And I think that's the best bet for the town and the people. So I think we need to proceed to get after the county. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Kadish?
Last week, I was told that there are only 56 dairy farms left in the state of New Jersey. And I was told that something like 96 dairy farmers had their milk processed, which serviced Walmart. And Walmart decided to buy a farm in Indiana and 5,000 cows and process their own milk in Indiana. So all your milk in Walmart will be shipped in from Indiana. Those 96 farmers went out of business because they didn't have a processor any longer. As far as I'm concerned, we should do everything possible to save family farms in the state of New Jersey and to facilitate the processing and the marketing of Jersey Fresh materials across state borders, which they're not allowed to do now if your product is not pasteurized, which is silly. If you make raw cheese, which is good cheese, you can't take it to Warwick. You can't take it to Union Square in New York. And it's time that our legislatures in both states, or perhaps even Connecticut as well, got together and formed a regional area where these laws can interact with each other rather than acting on age-old tradition. The problem was that the co-ops that the farmers belong to don't allow in New Jersey to have you go down to their barn and have their milk, to buy it, bring your own bottles. In New York State, you can. So if you do it in New Jersey, the co-op throws you out. You're not allowed to do it. So then you don't have any place to sell your milk. These laws are antiquated, and these rules and regulations are antiquated. I really went along with the open space and farmland preservation change of using these funds, a part of these funds, 1/3 of these funds, which were designed and voted in by the voters 18 years ago by different voters than are going to vote today, to acquire farmland and open space. I think we've all been very supportive of the mayor's plan to make new trails to augment the Appalachian Trail, and I think it's a very good idea. And I think these trails need to be maintained. But there are also problems with having open space, and Gene and I brought this up with some of the county officials 2 years ago, and that's how this idea of using some of this money came about. And basically, you have a farm like the Van Dockenberg farm in which there are thistles and weeds growing because the farmer's son, who was growing corn there, decided to get a real job and go off and work for the town of Warwick. And the farmer's getting too old to do it by himself. So now we have weeds. And these weeds are going to go all the way up the valley when they dry up and go to seed. So we should have a system in which some of these open spaces are maintained. If it's a simple mowing job, I don't approve of spraying herbicides, but at least someone can volunteer to go in there and mow. But there's opposition to doing anything for the state. Well, the state doesn't have much of a budget, and the county doesn't have much of a budget. So what are we going to do? We have to have some kind of plan how to deal with this open space. And trails is one good way to bring in people who are coming here for a destination hike. So basically, I think it's a good compromise. Essentially, I'm against freeing up these funds, but we'll see what the voters say. If the voters decide to do it, then all well and good. But we have to be very careful not to go on and use funds for acquisition. We don't have horse trails in this town. There are plenty of people who have horses and who come to this town to ride horses. We should have some facility for them. And we could probably do it very cheaply because there are all sorts of acreage on the mountainside in which there are horse trails there owned by a private individual. So we have to be careful. We should have an agricultural committee, but the council has taken over that job quite some time ago. And technically there hasn't been any discussion about its management, about its priorities at all, and I think that's remiss. We still have lots of farmers in this town, and we should take advantage of them. We also have some farmland that's not been preserved, and that should be thought of as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ohms?
Nothing, thank you.
I just wanted to mention, I happen to have had my notes, the open space meeting that Dan just spoke of was in 2015. And actually, Doreen Edwards was there also. And actually, that's when you mentioned bike trail needs to be completed. Horse trails should be considered. So you did actually mention that back then. I just wanted to mention something that I spoke to the mayor about. I asked him, the Municipal Services Act, what that is, it's private communities that are reimbursed for snow plowing. So if you're paying dues to your private communities, the town actually reimburses the communities for a large portion of their snow plowing. And the mayor will be putting out a report because I just mentioned to him that it would be good if the communities themselves knew, if people understood the costs that do go into that. Because if you just say Municipal Services Act and money's going, most of the public, or I would say most of the town, does not understand what that is unless you've been involved with it. So, like I said, it was just something that I asked if he could address so every community knows that you are, in fact, being reimbursed for that. Other than that, motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.